Hello and welcome. Today we will talk about Chapter 8, Developing an Effective Ethics Program. We need to keep in mind that the responsibility of a corporation to stakeholders is vast and massive because corporations are now increasingly being viewed as moral agents that are and should be accountable for their conduct to all of their stakeholders. So the stakeholders could be obviously shareholders, their employees, their customers, but also it could be government, it could be unions, it could be other institutions that are operating within the environment where the corporation is doing business. Through legislation and court precedents, society tends to hold companies accountable for the conduct of their employees as well as for their decisions and the consequences of those decisions. And obviously, this is why it's so important to make sure managers and employees always do the right things. Because remember, all employees and managers are agents of the organization, therefore anything they do basically is associated with that company in the company brand. So organizations or corporations are viewed as moral agents, and companies are required, therefore, to obey the laws and regulations that define acceptable business conduct. However, because companies are not human beings like you and I are, there has to be laws and regulations which are often necessary to provide formal, structural restraints and guidance on ethical issues. A coherent ethical corporate culture does not evolve through independent individual and interpersonal relationships. There is the need for organizational ethics programs in the development of good, effective programs regarding ethics. Understanding the factors that influence the ethical decision-making process does help companies and encourage ethical behavior and discourage undesirable conducts on the part of the employees and their managers. So to promote legal and ethical conduct, a company should develop an organizational ethics program by establishing, by communicating, and by monitoring the ethical values and the legal requirements that tend to characterize the organization's overall history, their culture, their industry, and the operating environment in general. Organizations can become bad barrels, not because individuals are bad or the employees are bad, but because the pressures to succeed sometimes create opportunities that reward unethical decisions on the part of employees and their managers. Without uniform standards and policies of conduct, it can be very difficult for employees to determine what behaviors are acceptable within a company, and they may make decisions based on how their coworkers and their superiors behave, which may not be aligned with the standards and expectations of the organization. A strong ethics program includes a written code of conduct, an ethics officer to oversee the program, careful delegation of authority to the right individuals, formal ethics training in auditing, monitoring, enforcement, and revision of the program and the standards that was created as part of the ethics program on a regular basis. There are no universal standards for organizational ethics programs, so you have to create it based on your specific organization, your values, in your profession in terms of the industry standards. Ethics is not something to be delegated to lower level employees or to managers alone. It is part of everybody's responsibility at all levels of the hierarchy throughout the organization. In other words, everybody needs to be rolling up their sleeves and monitoring to make sure all decisions are ethical and within the legal and moral realms. If a company's leadership fails to provide the right vision and the support that is needed for ethical conduct, then ethics programs will not be effective. So what is an effective ethics program? Well, we know that the more misconduct occurs at a company, the less trust employees feel toward that organization, and the greater the turnover of the employees will likely be, because people want to work at organizations where they take some pride in it. They don't want to be in an environment where their coworkers, their managers are misbehaving or unethical or immoral. A company must have an ethics program to ensure that all employees understand its values and comply with the policies and codes of conduct that create their ethical culture. Managers cannot assume that employees will automatically know how to behave when they're coming into your organization as new employees or as new managers. An ethics program can help avoid some of the legal problems for the organization. Some corporate cultures seem to provide opportunities for unethical conduct because their management tends to lack concern, or the company has failed to comply with the minimum requirements of the Federal Sentencing Guidelines for Organizations, or FSGO, which can actually result in penalties and loss of public confidence. The Federal Sentencing Guidelines for Organizations tend to encourage companies to assess their key risk areas and to customize a compliance program that addresses the specific risks and satisfies key effectiveness criteria. At the heart of the FSGO is the carrot and stick philosophy. Companies that act to prevent misconduct by establishing and enforcing ethical and legal compliance programs do receive a carrot, in other words, a reward, and avoid penalties should a violation occur in their organization. The ultimate stick, or the punishment, is the possibility of being fined or put on probation if they're convicted of a crime. An ethics program can help a company avoid civil liability, but the company bears the burden of proving that it has an effective ethics program. A program developed in the absence of misconduct will be more effective than one imposed as a reaction to scandal or prosecution. So it's good to be proactive in develop these programs as opposed to doing it once a violation does occur. Actually, a legal test of a company's ethics program is possible when one of the workers is charged with a misconduct. Let us talk about values versus compliance programs. Values versus compliance programs for a few minutes. No matter what their goals, ethics programs are developed as organizational control systems to create somewhat of predictability in employee behavior, which is really a function of an organization's culture to make behavior predictable into the future. There are two types of control systems which can be created. So a compliance orientation creates order by requiring that employees identify with and commit to specific required conduct that the organization trains them on or expects from all workers. In a value orientation, strives to develop shared values with a focus on core ideals such as being accountable or having a commitment toward a specific principle or issue. Empirical studies have shown that a values orientation creates ethical reasoning among employees. Values-based programs increase employees' awareness of ethics at work, their integrity, their willingness to deliver information to supervisors, their use of reporting mechanisms, and the perception that better ethical decisions are made. What about codes of conduct? Today, society expects to see organizational members adhere to ethical principles and standards that are specified through company ethics programs. So most companies begin the process of establishing organizational ethics programs by developing a specific code of conduct for all of their employees and managers. These statements could take several different forms. For example, it could be in the form of a code of conduct, which is a formal statement that describes what an organization expects of its employees. It could also be a code of ethics, which is the most comprehensive and consists of very general statements, sometimes somewhat altruistic or inspirational, that serves as principles and the basis for rules of conduct. Some of the key reasons why some of these codes of ethics tend to fail at some corporations are the fact that the code is not promoted and employees do not read it, or the code is not easily accessible, or the fact that the code is written too legalistically and is not understandable by an average employee. In other cases, the code is written somewhat vaguely, providing no accurate definition for how I should behave in a given situation. Or it could be the fact that top management never really refers to the code in the body or the spirit, therefore there's no role models for employees to basically follow that code of ethics program. Or a company could have a statement of values, which is conceived by management with obviously involvement and participation with the employees, and it is fully developed with input from all other stakeholders besides managers and employees. Regardless of its degree in comprehensiveness, a code of ethics should reflect upper managers' desires for compliance with the values, with the rules and policies that support an ethical culture at all times. The research has found that corporate code of ethics often contain several core values or principles, which could be trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and finally, citizenship. Of course, once you have these specific core values or principles in place as part of your code of ethics program, you need to provide training, you need to provide examples for employees in terms of how they can use this in different situations that they might face on a day-to-day basis. These values will not necessarily be effective without distribution, without training, without the support of top management in making these values a part of the corporate culture every single day. Code of conduct will not resolve every ethical issue that is encountered in daily operation, but they can help employees and managers deal with ethical dilemmas by prescribing or limiting specific activities. So if you have 4 options, maybe those codes of ethics basically helps you eliminate 2 of them. So now you got to make a decision between 2. So chances are you'll have better success rate by choosing one of them because you have eliminated 2 others. So when you have to face between 2 decisions, that means you have a 50% chance of being right, even if both of them are very complex decisions to make. Remember to encourage employees to think critically for themselves and to practice and exercise the core values in the code of conduct and the code of ethics that your organization provides for them onto their day-to-day basis so they can make decisions that are fully aligned with your ethics statements, with your code of conduct, with your ethics program overall in the standards. Good luck. Remember that ethical behavior is a skill. So you need to police, evaluate, and improve your ethical muscles every single day so you can manage and guide others effectively in your department, in your organization, and in society in general. Good luck.